Hello, children of God. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you're not. This is Quality Catechism, and I have a rock star next to me. For those of you familiar with the band Van Halen,
This is what they look like.
he had no connection to them. But so before we get into who this outstanding human being next to me is, I want to give us a couple reminders. First of all, it seems that yesterday's show was a bit of a hit, I got to tell you.
That's good.
And I was worried it would be boring because I love history, but I don't know who else does. And so we will continue that series next week. In the meantime, Jim's phone is talking to him because he's pure evil. I'm just kidding. He's not pure. So tomorrow, I'm really fired up about this. We're going to be at John P. O'Sullivan Distributors. And I know very little, except they're godly people, and they give us beer. Do we need to know more about anyone? So that'll be tomorrow's question and answer session, and I'm pretty geeked about it. But as for today, I'm looking and we're racking up more people, and I want to wait so I don't have to introduce you twice, because his resume takes forever to read. Takes forever. What is the word? He has a resume that make big with large. So anyway, here we are, and I'm so fired up about it. Now remember, as this man and I start talking, two things. First of all, get your questions ready for him, and we'll hit him with your questions. And then the second thing is, if his probation officer asks you, was he on the show? No, he was not. So who am I sitting next to? I'm sitting next to a man I love. Coach Jim AHERN. I'm going to tell you how I met this man. His name is Coach Jim AHERN. And I'm going to tell you a few things. 301 career wins as a coach. He has a state championship. He is in the Michigan High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame. He wrote a book called Coaching the Single Wing. He coached at Ithaca, at Palmetto Ridge and Lehigh. He coached at North Branch. But most important, he coached at God's favorite high school in the whole, and coaches at God's favorite high school in the whole country, Lansing Catholic High School, who just won a state championship in this last season. Now, Jim and I lived together for 2 years. And it was when he moved back up to Michigan to take a job in Lansing, and that's where we bonded. And he is truly a holy and good man. And so I'm so excited to bring him on to talk to you guys and to help you get to know him. What I'll tell you now, and he knows the story well, is the way he got the coaching job at Lansing Catholic. I served as chaplain at Lansing Catholic from 1999 to 2009, and we were awful at football. We did not do well. We had 1 year where we had more wins than losses, and the rest of the time we had more losses than wins. And good boys, hardworking boys, blah, 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 we just couldn't get it together. And so we were looking to hire a new football coach, and my last job as chaplain was to be on this team where we hire our new coaches. So we put out a net and said, if you want to make huge money, go find a public school. But if you would like to get paid very little money and have parents telling you you're doing it wrong, then come work for us. And he sent his resume. So we're looking through these and we're going through these interviews. He was such an impressive interview. And in the end, we bumped off 10 candidates and we were down to 2. This guy, Coach Jim AHERN, and another guy who was 28 years old and a firebrand. And when we were interviewing them, the whole committee said Jim as their first choice and the young guy as the second. And I was the only idiot, me and another guy. And we said, no, Jim's our second choice, young guy. And then one of the others on the committee asked him this question. Well, Jim, you seem like a very quiet fellow, and the other candidates are very fiery. How are you going to motivate the boys? And with the utmost humility, Do you know this story? He gave the best answer ever. Quote, well, we'll win a lot. And I find that builds confidence. We hired him. And his first year, you took us to states. Yeah. A team that was 2-7 the year before, his first year went all the way to states. Is that crazy?
Yeah, God blessed us.
Yeah, see, it's that humility crap. Now, I like other people to be humble, but I don't feel like that's what Jesus wants of me. If he wanted me to be humble, would he have given me this? So when he came and worked at Lansing Catholic, we lived together at a rectory in East Lansing, where Jesus went to school at MSU. And I did notice, if I may, before we get into the formal interview, you appear to have brought a piece of jewelry with you today. Would you care to show us that piece of jewelry?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, what that is, for those of you who don't know, is a state championship ring. Right there. Look at that puppy. Look at that thing. Yeah, if you threw this at a puma, you would kill it. This thing is awesome. And in fact, if I may, can we put it right here?
Sure.
Right? See, so, and then, you know what I did when I saw yours?
Yes.
Yes. I brought this one. Now, for those of you who are U of M fans, this is called a Big Championship ring, and only Spartans have them. We've got about 5 in the last 10 years. I think you guys had one in the 1300s, but we haven't seen any since. Is that? Are you a Spartan or a Wolverine?
I like both.
Oh, there you go.
He's a Spartan.
I probably would have to lean a little bit towards Sparty because I knew Mark fairly well, and
Yeah, Coach D'Antonio. Yeah.
But I also knew Lloyd Carr real well, so I like both of them.
Now pull the rings back.
Oh, pull the rings back. They're just so heavy that it's hard to move them.
Yeah.
So, Coach Jim AHERN, superstar action figure, tell us about you. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Owasso. Went to Owasso St. Paul's, which was now is just I think they still go up through 8th grade. I think there. So it was a really good experience. Schools, we had the largest class to ever come out of St. Paul's, which was 75 kids.
Oh, wow.
So it was a small school.
Sure.
We were really fortunate athletically. We had some really good kids and good coaching, and we were really successful. I think that's probably had a lot to do with why I went into coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from there, after graduation, I went to Aquinas for a couple of years.
That would be St. Thomas Aquinas. Jim's a lot older than you think. No.
I'm about as old as they think.
Sorry.
No, I went there for 2 years, and then actually financially it just got too expensive.
Sure.
So I transferred to Western and graduated from Western. And then right after graduation, during my senior year at Western, I coached with Dick Soyson at Kalamazoo Hackett. Learned quite a bit there. That was a good experience. And then the first year out, I was an assistant for Don Smesnick at North Branch.
Okay.
And it was kind of neat. Both those guys were completely different coaches, but both of them ended up in the Hall of Fame. So I learned a lot from a lot of stuff from both of them. Then I got the head coaching job at Goebels. To be honest with you, I think I was probably too young to get that job.
Okay.
But it was a good learning experience. I learned quite a bit there. I was there for 3 years, and then in 1972 through 2003, I was at Ithaca.
Nice.
And that's where we raised the family. It was a really good place to be as a small community, and everybody's close. Everybody knew everybody. It was really nice. I still have a lot of good friends there, and after I left there, it's really neat. The coaching staff there either coached with me or played for me. Just about all the kids except about 1 or 2 on that staff. So we're still really close. We get together and talk things over sometimes. In 73, I went to Florida for 3 years. Or not 73, 2004.
Okay.
Went to Florida was there for 4 years. And we could do a whole show on experiences there. If I had to do it over again, I probably would not have went.
Okay.
we'll leave it at that. There was a lot of the first school we were at. I won't mention the school, but we met with principal and the athletic director and whatever they had a different title for it, but it was like the guy that was head of the Boosters Club, and they just lied right to us and all the stuff that was going to happen. So it was really kind of the only unique thing about that is we had an unbelievable coaching staff there. There was 4 guys that had been head coaches, 2 guys that had played at major college, and it was really a good staff. We set a record there. We were it was a first-year school. It was the first-year school not to have a losing record. So,
wow.
So it was kind of neat.
Oh, that's
But
neat.
then everybody separated because all the stuff they told us wasn't happening. And I was going to come back to Michigan, and a person at the school I was teaching at, Palmetto Ridge, was saying that there was a new school going to open up in Lehigh Acres, which was just north of Naples. And he said you should look into it. And it was going to be kind of an interesting situation where it was just going to be 1 grade at a time.
Okay.
And I thought that'd be kind of neat. You could sort of establish your own, everything. You'd be in control of it. Well, long story short, I got that job, and then the school couldn't get built because there was actually a creek that ran through it, and the Army Corps of Engineers says it was a wetlands.
Oh boy.
So our first 2 years there were in a Kmart, basically is what it was. It was a restructured Kmart. No gymnasium, no locker room, no weight facilities, no anything. So we practiced at a park. The kids got dressed behind a bus at the park and stuff. It was crazy. Then the 3rd year, the school was finally built. They had to change everything around, but it took 2 more years to get it built.
Wow.
Beautiful school. And then my wife got sick and got cancer and died, and so I left that school. She was sick, and then be honest with you, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I just said, God, what do you want? And long story short, Tom Maloney, who at that time was the principal at Lansing Catholic, had actually done his student teaching at Ithaca. And so he helped in football a little bit, and I was a freshman basketball coach there too, and he was a really good basketball player. He played at Elma College, and so I knew him. Well, the teacher Rob Bowden was his supervisor, and he saw Rob at one of the malls in Lansing, and they got talking, and he had asked what I was doing, and that's how I found out about the job, and I didn't really have any idea what I was doing. I didn't care, to be honest with you, so I just sent a resume in, and here we are.
Praise God.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, if you want to make God smile, tell him your plans.
There you go. There you go. There you go. And so for those of you who are not football people, right? There's people watching, and probably even a number of them that they're like, football, right? But part of the reason we brought you on here was here was my thinking. Okay, this is just a good man, right? That Jim is a good man who God gave a skill to that he then nurtured and plugged it into boys' lives to help them. And I found living with Jim, like I counted the other night when I was thinking of it last night. I was thinking this. I've lived with over 30 people since I moved out of home, right? And that doesn't count the prison sentence, right? Because honestly, that just kills the average, right? But if you look at all the priests I've lived with, all the seminaries, this is my favorite human I've ever lived with, except for my dad.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dad's right there. And Dad and Jim hate each other.
Not true. Not true.
No, but anyway, Jim's and why, hopefully you'll see as we go through this interview. So what I'll ask you to do, I'm going to keep peppering Jim with questions. And in the meantime, if you have questions about football or about Jim or about his faith life or, the whole embezzlement thing.
You said you weren't going to mention it.
Oh, that's right. That was confession, wasn't it? Never mind. So, brother, what role does faith play in your life as a human and as a coach?
It's changed over time, I think. I think being raised in a Catholic family, mom and dad were really very religious. I remember fighting not wanting to go to mass. You are going to mass, So, and then going through the Catholic schools, I think was really good. I had forgotten. To be honest with you, I hadn't been in a Catholic school after I graduated until I came back to Lansing Catholic, and I forgot how different it is.
Yeah.
It sounds cliche, but it's really a family,
Yes.
and it's. I think So I went to Aquinas. That was a Catholic school, a Catholic college, that was a good choice. I had some other options, and I ended up going there. I think that was probably a good place for me at that time. And I think my prayer life, my faith life, really didn't change much from maybe after I graduated from college through 40 years of marriage. And then I think when my wife died, that was a real awakening for me. You don't realize, how can you say this so it makes sense? Your life's in God's hands, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think it really changed after that. Jerry, my wife, used to go to Mass quite a bit, more than I did during the week because I was working. After she passed away, I tried to go to daily Mass, which I never had before. Of course, part of it was because you were working, but I hadn't. So and I still try to do that. It's been hard during this pandemic because a lot of the churches don't have it. I end up watching a stream from Holy Family.
It's my understanding you're reduced to watching a bad priest say Mass on the computer. Yeah.
No, that's not true. And to be honest, when I go to Mass, where I go, I come back and I put yours on so I can hear your sermons. Be honest with you, that's a true story. Yeah, he paid me big bucks to say that, but no, that's true. But so I think it was a tragedy from the standpoint of a loss of somebody I really loved, but I think it changed me quite a bit.
Yeah.
So.
And do you and if I may, as someone who walked with you a bit,
oh yeah, you helped me through it, believe me.
It prepared me, right? So walking with this beautiful man who loves his wife, and watching him, if I may, wrestle with the pain of it, but I never saw you go to a point where you said, so I don't believe in God. Like anyone else, you struggled with confusion about God, about what the hell's going on. But it helped me years later, as I dealt with mom's sickness and death, to say my priority has to be I start with, I believe in God, right? Yeah. I'm going to proceed from there. And, so much of it, that was a blessing for me too, And I can't remember. Was my dog Bailey in the house? Yeah. Okay. Bailey was with us at that point, and none of you know her. She's with the Lord now. But Jim had a dog named Maggie.
Yeah.
And she was a greyhound who, what's funny is, Jim talking about this greyhound, when it then came time for one of my nephews to seek out a dog, I told him about your experience, and now he's got a few of them.
Yeah, they're great dogs.
Yeah.
Great dogs.
And one of my nephews, in fact, Shane's got two. And last year, we went over to his yard, and I helped a little bit, right? Because it was days and days project, and I just get one day off, right? So one day I went over and helped build a fence over an acre.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't just let them go, right? They might get lost.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, side issue. How did you then, Jim, this faith of yours, which has gotten in a good way hardened with time, right? It's went into the fire. How do you try to pass that on to the boys, or do you keep football separate? So when you're coaching, does Jesus come up?
Yeah, we end every practice with a prayer, and for every game we attend Mass.
Yeah.
And so it's part of that's one of the neat things of being at a Catholic school is you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, at the public schools, I be honest with you, tried to do it too, but it was more silent prayer, and that you can't, you know, you couldn't cross the line.
Sure.
But here it's I think it's something we all look forward to.
Yeah.
And I remember one night I forgot, you know, as we were in a hurry, and one of the kids says, "Hey, I'm going to say our prayer," you know. So it's
Nice.
you know it's a neat thing.
Nice. Now, one other thing, like today in the church, we celebrate two great things, right, as a church. The first is the feast of St. Peter Chrysologus, who has a hard name to say, right? And of course, the irony is Chrysologus, I think, in Greek means golden words, right? If it's golden words, your name should be easier to pronounce. Like, just Blush. Like, what's his name? Peter Blush. But nobody listens to me. But the second major feast in the church today is your birthday.
I don't think that's a feast day.
Oh yeah, no, it's on the calendar. Don't look it up. But Jim turns 29 today.
Yeah, actually, 30.
30, sorry. Boy, that's embarrassing. Yeah. But so, on behalf of everyone watching, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And so what would you say is the perfect birthday present? If somebody had unlimited resources and wanted to give you a present, what would it be?
I think being on quarantine catechesis with Father Joe would be a great birthday present.
You have chosen wisely. Jim, it just so happens we can pull that off.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're pretty excited about that. But so when you're coaching kids and you talk about the prayer, and there's I'll give it back to you now.
Okay.
We'll put on our championship rings. Again, for those of you who are fans of the University of Michigan, a championship is something you win when you're the best team in your conference. Okay? So if you ever need help going, what is that? Just ask a Spartan. We've got about 5 of them now in the last few years, and you can also ask Jim. Right? Are you going to put your ring on? Is it on?
Yeah, I
yes.
put it on.
Okay, so there we go. Yeah. What have you had, like, again, a kid you're coaching, do they come to you talk to you about things that are not football?
Oh yeah, especially as at Ithaca, because as a counselor you was a separate role. So
Sure.
Yeah, that happens. It happens a little bit. I'm not actually teaching at Lansing Catholic. I'm there every day, try to get up to school every day, and so you'll talk to the kids. Probably more so at Ithaca than it has been when I was in Florida. That was a real common thing. It was really eye opener for me. As we talked about, the schools were really low income kids, and there very few had 2 parents.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of issues there. So it's more likely that you'd have conversations with those kids, but sometimes at Lansing Catholic, but not as much.
And if people are watching this, bro, and maybe they don't have any experience of the kind of schools you're talking about from down in Florida, what would be something that might surprise them? Like, what would they... So, like, in a time, right, in our country where there's a lot of division, a lot of anger, a lot of fear, we're really, I think, trying to confront racism in our country, and we're really trying to confront the idea of kind of an institutionalized poverty, right? Which is what I hear, a kind of poverty that it's not going to be easy for those kids to get out, right?
Yeah.
What is that world like, if I may? Is that too general of a question?
No, I can give you some examples. It
Sure.
was like I said, it was a real eye opener. I didn't even realize some people would live in some of the conditions. A lot of the kids didn't have ways to get home, and be honest with you, it got old after a while. You're giving this kids rides home, and but you would take them home, and some of the homes that those kids were living in, I mean, no windows, no door. I remember the one kid. I said, "What do you do at night about the mosquitoes?" He says, "Coach, I just get under the covers. It's fine." And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, I didn't realize that was happening still.
Yeah.
So it was a real eye opener for me, and you get really close to those kids. They're looking for, I don't know, leadership isn't the right word. They're looking for somebody that they can trust, I think, as much as anything. And when I go back to Florida, I still have a home there. Those kids still come over and visit, which is it's really neat. I say those kids, they all have kids of their own now,
Isn't that something?
but they still come by, and it's a lot of different experiences with some of those kids down there. It's just entirely different. It would probably be similar to, maybe like inner city Detroit for some of the families that would be living there. I'm sure that, the coaches there could tell you stories the same way.
And those kids that come to see you, are they taking the next step? Are they able to, or are they kind of in the same lot they were before?
No, most of them have improved themselves. A couple of those kids, we got scholarships for, so they had some college. A couple of the other ones, one actually was our well, I can tell you his position. He was our quarterback and was with the wrong group and they tried an armed robbery, so he was put in jail, and that was an experience for me too. I went to visit him, and that's not what I've pictured as a 17-year-old kid being in this place. Where you walked in to talk to him, I figured we'd just sit down at a table. But no, he was in a little, like on TV, the little cubicle with a phone. And I had to walk by these other ones, and I looked at the gentlemen that were in there, and I thought, oh my God, this 17-year-old kid's living with these guys.
Yeah.
It was really scary. Oh. And I asked him, I says, how did you get it? He says, Coach, those are my friends. That's where I lived. I didn't know he had a gun, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there was all kinds of stories like that. It's just, it's sad. But most of them now, he's out, and he's got a really good job. He's got his own lawn care service, and he's got a couple people working for him. So he's turned it around.
Sweet,
which is really neat. So, some of those kids that I've talked to have been able to get out.
Okay, and how do you So you've got a few things in your life, right? You've got football. You've got your family. You've got your mind, body, soul. How do you find balance between all these different things in your life, right? And is that something then you try to pass on to the boys?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I do such a good job at it. I think sometimes I maybe spend too much time with football.
Okay.
I don't know. I look at it from the standpoint, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right.
Yes.
And to do it right takes the time. And so if I'm going to put the time on there, obviously I'm taking it away from some others. It's a difficult, balancing act. And so I'm sure there's times when I probably should have been with family where I wasn't, in the past. I know that, and that's unfortunately the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, and I do remember when I lived with you, we had morning prayer together.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say together, we were just doing our morning prayer at the same time in the same location, right?
Yeah.
Like Dad and I do now, where it's not prayer together, but it's together we're praying.
Yeah.
And I was always impressed with your focus during prayer. Like, as a guy for whom focus is tough, it felt to me like you were right in. And then at Mass too, I was always touched by your devotion and your attentiveness. Okay. Okay. So, you know what? I didn't bring my glasses, but I think I can read this. I'm sorry, my lady. Thank you. Okay. I read in St. Paul's letter to Corinthians that arena sports was a form of idolatry. How do you maintain perspective balance? Football in the UK, and their football is
soccer.
Yeah, I know you have American football over there too, but I just assume. Anyway, football in the UK is like a religion in itself, and kids practice on Sunday so they don't go to Mass, which is worrying. How do we teach parents to prioritize Sunday obligation?
It's a good question. I guess we don't do anything on Sundays as far as a team. I think it's important that they have some time away from it. I know we don't even try to bring kids in on weekends. Actually, I think they need to get away from it for a while. But I don't know. I probably, when I was younger, it wasn't my priority to go to mass. Like I said, Mom and Dad made sure you were going to go, but a lot of times I probably didn't want to go. So I don't know. It's just got to be, you know, like a lot of the T-shirts that the mothers have that have faith, family, football. That's
Yeah.
I think the order that it should go, and for the most part, I think it does. But that's obviously that's good. You don't want to lose the faith part.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that was one of the things that, to us at least, I remember on the interview committee was so impressive was a lot of the people we interviewed, their bragging point was their obsession with football, right? And your strategy was like less football. I specifically remember we talked about it, which was, no, on Saturdays and Sundays, leave them alone, right?
Yeah.
Leave them alone. And you were the only, in all my years of interviewing, right, and I've interviewed 8 billion people for jobs. You were the only one who kind of took that position. I've never forgot it. No, Saturday, Sunday, no, they need a break from football. And I did think, I remember that, and I think that's pretty cool. If I may interject, when Sacred Tradition condemned arena sports, but I want to help you with something here that I don't know if you know this, sorry. Right. The word arena is Latin. It's Latin for sand. Okay. And what arena sports was in biblical times was blood sports. Namely, you put sand on the ground so that it soaked up the blood. So this wasn't, like our sports. The only sport they had, like what we would call a sport, would be chariot racing. And I know that sounds funny, but they were insane about it. But for the most part, when Sacred Tradition, I don't remember anything in Scripture about it, but at least in our Sacred Tradition, they definitely condemned specifically arena sport, namely blood sport, where slaves killed each other for entertainment, right? And they would reenact battles. Now, the Colosseum, the thing we call the Colosseum, wasn't built yet during the time of Scripture. Who built it? Flavius. Flavius built it. But they had arenas everywhere, right? Because that was entertainment, right? It was killing, murder, fighting to the death. So just know that when you hear arena sports in our Sacred Tradition, they are specifically referring to what they said sand sports, but we would say blood sports. The sand was there to soak up the blood. So I don't know if that's. Did you know that?
No.
Oh. Even so, if you do this, you should do this every once in a while, Jim. Some kind of thing where they can see that. Right? You know what I mean? Yeah. I remember seeing an interview with Nick Saban where he had, I think, 900 rings. Yeah, on his hands. And again, same thing. All these rings. Like if you threw this at an elephant in the head, you would kill the elephant. They're heavy, huge. Anyway. All right. Jane Black says, happy birthday.
Oh, that's my niece.
Jane Back. Sorry.
That's my niece.
Oh, nice. Okay. Hello, Jane. And for you, I will punch your uncle for his birthday on your behalf. You're welcome. This is a big one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Are you sure?
I'm sure.
This is tough.
Okay.
All right. Is it true that Danny Nugent was your favorite player ever?
Is that from Danny?
I think so. Yes.
He definitely was.
Yes.
It's from his dad.
Yeah.
It was from his dad.
Danny, thank you for submitting your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I just saw him. So last time I saw Danny Nugent, he was about this tall, and he was just a boostly boogle. You just wanted to squeeze him, right? And then I saw him last year, and I saw him 4 or 5 distinct times over a 1 hour period. Didn't know it was him.
Oh, yeah,
That boy got big.
He's a big boy.
And was he that big in high school?
He was that tall. He was kind of thin.
Okay.
He played
Tight end?
Played tight end for us.
There you go.
Played, I think, some defensive end also. I think.
Okay. Coach, besides coaching, have you taught any normal classes?
Yeah, when I first started, before I had my counseling degree, I taught a whole bunch of different classes: political science, history, a lot of social studies classes and some health classes. But most of my career was in counseling from 72 to 2003, and then when in Florida, I was actually a counselor down there too. So most of my time at schools has been in counseling.
Sure. And Linda Bauman Herka, perhaps, a fellow St. Paul Owasso grad, says hello.
Hello.
Yeah, and she also wants that $5 you borrowed.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Linda. So what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, I used to like to play tennis quite a bit. I used to golf quite a bit when I was at Ithaca. Some good friends of mine, some fellow coaches, and some just other guys that taught and stuff. We were in some leagues and everything. We played quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to Florida, it was so expensive. I haven't golfed really since I was in Florida.
No kidding.
You could get a year membership for like $450. So I'd golf from April till football started. Well, down in Florida, most of the courses that are around where I lived were like about $100 a round. I couldn't justify it, so I haven't golfed in a long time. But
golf is a good walk wasted.
Yes,
I believe that's a Mark Twain quote. Is that true?
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Like, I'll walk that far carrying a heavy thing, but only if I know there's ice cream or bacon or beer at the end. But if it's like, no, carry this heavy bag a long way so that you can try to put an impossibly small ball into a ridiculously small hole a half mile away. No, thank you.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me. Like if it was like, Joe, here's $100 to play golf. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? I can buy bacon for $5. I don't. Okay, so you've coached how many years?
Oh God, started in 1967. So it'd be 50. This is going to be 53rd year.
53 years coaching, which is amazing because you're 30 years old.
Yes.
And just as a side note, I wasn't born yet.
Yes.
When you started to okay, I just want to make that super clear. How about if you give us your two best moments, the two in that 53 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow, really? Yeah, isn't that crappy?
Yeah.
All right, how's this? First, give us your most memorable player or players.
Oh, that's impossible.
Yeah?
It's you remember most of the players. And you've had, I've been fortunate enough to have some really good players. But, the kids that I think that stand out to me the most are those kids that aren't starters.
Yeah.
That work their fannies off to make the rest of the team better. Those kids are special.
Yeah.
And I think, and I tell this to the team, it may sound silly, but I think any of the kids that are playing football right now are special kids because it's a tough sport. And a lot of the kids today, they don't want to work that hard. No. I hate to say that. I was on a panel, and one of the questions that they asked us on that panel was, are kids different today than they were yesterday? And everybody was saying, no, they're all the same. And I says, no, they're not the same. It's a lot different. The kids today are a lot different than they were so the kids that are willing to work and do that extra, I think, are special kids.
Yeah. And that is something. It's really, do you remember Will Yurkevich?
Yeah.
Mr. J?
Yeah.
He was a teacher when we were teaching at Lansing Catholic. It was really when, at least that I'm aware of, culturally, we started this thing of saying this generation, that generation, and defining them by traits. Like everybody knew the greatest generation, right? But this was when I really first started hearing this idea of, like Gen X, they always ripped on us, right? Listless and all this. And as a Gen Xer, right? I'm a Gen Xer. And I remember when Trump and the North Korean dictator, the young one, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I froze up. Okay, if someone can help me, the dictator of North Korea, right?
Sun Hugh or something.
Yeah. I remember shortly after Trump was made president, the two of them kind of got into it. And I put this tweet up. Do you remember?
Kim Young.
Young.
Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
Right? Kim Jong-un, that's it. I remember Kim Jong-un's a millennial. Trump is a, what do you call those people? A boomer.
Yeah.
And I remember putting on Twitter, as a Gen Xer, I always knew the world would end because a boomer and a millennial mixed it up. I knew that somehow those two generations would find a way to end the world. I was sure of it. Gen Xers, we lacked the ambition. Right. But why am I telling you this? Oh, Will said an interesting thing. I've never forgot it. He said, our society has changed so much and technology has changed so much that I don't think you can really classify them by huge groups anymore. Year to year, they're so different.
Oh yeah.
And I saw that. Like, I saw classes of students that I will remember for the rest of my life. And I can't even say that as they were academic freaks or athletic freaks. It was just, they were, as a group, I don't even know how to explain it, but I think it's resonating with you.
Oh yeah.
And then there were other ones, like here's a perfect example. So at Lansing Catholic, the custom was that the last day for the seniors, they get together in a group, right? And they kind of walk the halls of the school and they clap and they sing. And it was actually just a lovely, to be honest, I hate secular traditions. And I don't know why I'm so cynical about them. I loved that one.
Yeah.
There was something so wonderful about it. And I remember specifically, I won't say what year, because obviously I don't want to embarrass anybody. But Tom Maloney, our principal at the time, said, I guarantee they won't be able to do it. And it wasn't even that they were bad kids, but as a group, they had a personality, and the personality was more listless than anything. And sure enough, all the teachers are kind of pushing the kids out, the seniors out the door, like, guys, go do this. And they literally stood in the cafeteria and kind of milled about. And finally, the principal starts, senior, and he starts, and then, okay. And then they do it, and they had a great time, but they couldn't start it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a very long thing. But maybe that's something you can offer us. What are some things, do you see patterns emerging in, say, the last 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or anything where you say, this is a consistent pattern I've seen that's different than previous generations? Is that?
I don't know if you get within the past 5 years. I think one of the things you've noticed on from a coaching standpoint that you see sometimes, and I'll use last year's team as an example. They hate it when I tell them this, but I'm not sure that they were the most talented athletically that we've had since I've been there. But I don't know if I've had a group any closer. The chemistry on that team was just unbelievable. We had a lot of situations that came up where that could have blown up and made the situation horrible. But the kids all worked with each other and were willing to take different roles and stuff. That is special. You don't see that as much anymore. Kids are more me-oriented than they are team-oriented a lot of times. And that was a special group that way that they weren't. They were really a team-oriented team and great chemistry amongst them. You know, so I don't know if that answers the question or not. But
It does. And I actually thought of a question. I'm going to give you an example of it.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're going to say, I don't know. Right? But you can do this. This is, so 10 years I was on the sidelines for every game, right? And again, we were awful. Okay. But there were memories that have nothing to do with winning or losing that are to me ridiculously funny, right?
Yeah.
Or, right, so here's my favorite. In my 10 years, okay, we had a player, and like happens a lot in high school football, mom and dad and the player were convinced he was a Division I athlete, okay? And it's so hard to explain to people. When my first year on the MSU sideline, I saw what coaches meant when they said to kids, you're fantastic, and you're nowhere near D1. It is terrifying how fast, how strong, how agile the worst kids in D1 are, right? And this is why, what is the stat? I mean, almost nobody gets to Division I football anymore.
Correct.
All this to say, this kid and his mom and dad were convinced he was Division I, okay? and we were playing a game, and I'm going to be candid, he wasn't the best student. Okay, good heart, good kid, was vaguely aware there was a thing called class that he was supposed to be at. We were playing, of all people, Eaton Rapids, and he got hit. And I mean, hit hard enough where he didn't get up, right? He just hit the ground, and he went totally straight. I'm like, oh my God, he's dead. I literally, I mean, I've seen some hits. This is one where I thought, oh no, he's dead. And we run out there, and the trainer, we didn't have a trainer. The trainer for Eaton Rapids runs over, and he's just coming out of it. And he opens his eyes, and they're crossed. I mean, this kid got rocked. And so they kind of set him up, and he's like, I'm fine. And she said, do you know where you are? And he said, I'm playing football. Which is your first clue. They have no idea where they are or what's going on. And then she asked him this, quote, can you tell me who's president? And our coach, who was not Jim at the time, went, ask him a question he can answer. Because he looked confused, but he looked confused all the time. And there was just something so magical about that moment. And it was Coach Hub. It was Hub Wade. He goes, ask him a question he knows the answer to. But, that's a true story.
I could hear it hum.
Oh, because he would have had no idea.
Yeah.
It was President Bush Jr. But I don't know that I've ever, because some of it was relief. He was clearly fine. I mean, he was dinged. He didn't play again.
Yeah.
But he went into concussion protocol, and we were at the end of the season. Yeah. And we weren't making the playoffs. We went 2-7 that year with our Division I athlete. But I'll never forget Coach Hub. He goes, ask him a question he knows the answer to, because that's one of my favorites. And another one, a coach before you, we had a boy who blew out his leg in a previous game. So he comes to the locker room, and he's in that cast that takes up the whole leg. Yeah. And he's got it kind of up on the bench, right? Yeah. And we were getting ready to play Mason. And they usually just handed it to us, right? They were so much bigger than us. Coach told me before we went in, he goes, I'm going to really fire the boys up. I don't need you to do anything. I'll give the speech, right? Because I usually gave the fire up speech. I got an idea. So he starts giving the speech, and he's getting warm. And the boys are actually, you could see, he thought this through. And the boys, and in his excitement, he kicked the metal trash can, which flew across the room, hit the boy in the knee, and he started screaming like he got shot. And he's rolling on the ground screaming, and the whole room's like, and that broke. Whatever good thing and that's another. Do you have any of these you want to share with us?
Oh, I'm trying to think of something as you were talking, one that comes off my head. None that I could think of, to be honest with you, right now that just pop in. But there are so many.
Oh yeah.
I wish I could, but I can't think of anything right now.
Do you remember Mason? This was before your time, but you might remember him. Mason had a boy, and I can't remember, he had a unique name, and that kid was a freight train. And he had Division I offers, but he got himself in a spot of trouble. Is this ringing any bells? It was like Colton or something, like he was considered the best football player in Michigan. And we had a soccer boy who we convinced him to kick extra points. Because one thing about those soccer kids, they can kick that ball. But what they can't do is take a hit. And so he was our only good player just because he could kick that ball 13 miles. And he was doing kickoffs. And the rule was this. Call him Bob. Okay? Bob, you kick that ball and you run off the field. You run the wrong way. You do whatever it takes, because if someone hits you, they will kill you, right? And so he kicks the ball, and it went to this kid who was a monster. And I'm on the sideline. I see him kick the ball. Now his eyes are this big, and he's running like crazy for the sideline. And his eyes are this big, and I see him see the boy who's now broke away and is coming full bore. And Bob is the only human between this kid and the end zone. And my hand to heaven, I went, don't! I'm yelling, don't! And he tried to tackle him, and it separated him from his senses. Right? He had to. He hit that kid so hard, and Bob hits the ground and slid, and just is laying there. And again, I think he's dead. And then I think the kid's name was Sean Coulter. Sean Coulter, is this ringing any bells?
That name sounds familiar.
Gets to the end zone and immediately turns around and he ran. He felt so bad, right? He ran to him. He was holding him. He felt so. He murdered this good boy, but that was it. He quit the football team.
Yeah,
That night he quit the football team, and but that kid, I think it was Sean Coulter, and he was a monster. But he literally ran back and he was crying. He felt so bad. Yeah. He just murdered this little soccer player. And oh no. But again, he was fine, you know, but he was just like, I never want to get hit like that again. And Coach Waite again went, you never will. You're never going to run into a kid like that again. There's one of him every 10 years. You'll be fine, but no, that would be it. Oh. I don't know. These are some of the stories I think.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you probably don't necessarily like football, and that's okay. Heaven's gonna suck. Just kidding. So, Coach, this one, throwing the clipboard. Is this for Coach AHERN? Okay, I've got it. I don't understand this.
I do.
Oh, okay. The question is throwing the clipboard at the referee during the playoffs.
No, that's not true. I have a picture. I have a picture that I had on my wall at Ithaca, and I'm throwing the clipboard down, but not at the official. That was Jim Baker that did that.
Oh, Jim's pure evil. Okay, so folks, Jim is a guy we both love so dearly.
Yeah.
Jim Baker, I can't even tell you how much I love that old man. And my desk, that was him. He donated that.
Oh, I'm sure he
Yeah,
did. Yeah,
he donated, I think, this table and these chairs. I mean, Jim, corporate office interiors. Is it still called that?
Yep.
Okay, if you have, as a side note,
yes,
corporate office interiors, Catholic-owned business, lovely man.
Yeah.
But, well, here's one. Boy, Coach, I like this one. Of all the kids you coached at a Catholic school, so that's just been, what, the last 10 years? No.
11 years.
11 years. Okay. What percentage would you say are Catholic? There's a lot of questions in this one, so that's the first one.
Almost all of them. There's very few that... and I've talked to a lot of people. There's always this perception that we have all these recruit kids and stuff, which is, is not true. I've been there 11 years, and I think we've had 6 kids that haven't went through our elementary and middle school program, and those kids are kids that came in as freshmen.
Yeah.
One that came in as a junior, and two that came in as junior. The one was there 1 year, then they moved again. So I'd say probably 90% or above, maybe more than that, probably 98% or above are Catholic.
Well, and I do as a side note, and this might ruffle some feathers, and honestly, it's not my intent, but it is one thing. I was a public school kid, and we always said, Catholic schools recruit. And then you get to the Catholic school, and you realize they have no money to recruit. And what means do you have to recruit kids? It was... the first year that he took over and we won like crazy, it was all the public school kids. Oh, they recruit. And I'm like, so let me check. We didn't recruit for 10 years. And then we recruited. Is that, yeah. Anyway, all right. So now, Coach, of the kids who were not Catholic, do you know of any that either converted or found deeper meaning in their own faith tradition as a result of their Catholic education?
Not off the top of my head, because there hasn't been that many. I'm trying to think of the ones that maybe weren't. I think I can think of a couple kids off the top of my head that I knew that weren't Catholic, but that really took part in all of our, like when we were going to say a prayer, they took part in that. They always were at Mass with us. So whether or not they actually converted to Catholicism, I'm not sure, but they took part in all the stuff that we did and felt part of it, I think.
And actually, I have an important update. Oh my gosh, this makes me so happy. I just listened to this thing on memory, right? And one of the things I always say is we always have to approach our memories with humility, because we tend to remember either what's most comical or most our brains decide what to remember. I remember this wrong about the kicker. He just wrote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. And Patrick, I didn't know you watched. That makes me so happy. I'll tell you this. Patrick, I forgot this was you. And he went on to boxing, I believe, at Notre Dame, didn't you? If you can answer, if that was Patrick, he went on to box at Notre Dame, right?
Geez.
So A, getting into Notre Dame, which Jesus couldn't do.
Yeah.
B, boxing there.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what he said. He was the kicker.
Yeah.
And Coulter did not score.
Oh.
Yeah, he said, he murdered me, but went out of bounds. And he says, I didn't quit. I just couldn't play because he was on basically concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Isn't that, way to go, brother? Does Lumen Christi recruit? No. Again, just follow.
But I like what they said.
Oh,
to be honest.
you can be honest. Okay, think of it this way. Think of what Coach said, and you can check it out, right? This is how you know if a school's recruiting. Did they play in the Catholic school system from kindergarten up? If so, no, they weren't recruited. They followed the system up. If they were at a different school and jumped over all of a sudden their freshman year or their sophomore or junior year, then you might have room to talk about it. But in your case, in 11 years, that's been 6 kids.
Yeah.
Now, to give you a sense of things, I guarantee your public school had more in that same period.
Oh, yeah.
Guarantee.
With the schools of choice,
Yeah.
especially in the Lansing area,
Patrick.
because there's some really good academic schools
Okay.
along with ours that have good programs, and so is the kid going to pay tuition and come to ours, or is he going to go to one of the other schools?
Right.
I don't see it.
I just think it's one of those things people learned to say in the 1950s and just held on to. How do you explain a Catholic school success? Well, they have to have cheated.
Yeah.
Well, we're not the ones with billion-dollar budgets, all right? So, Patrick, did he answer? If that was, it had to be him because there was only one Sean Coulter game,
Yeah.
right? So that had to be you, bro. Way to go. That's hilarious. And he stopped him from scoring.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. There was one in here I really... Oh, hey, Coach. Have you ever coached a special needs student?
Not in football. I had in basketball once, but no, I haven't had any in football.
Okay. And may I ask, do you remember, did you do anything unique? Did you have to change up your approach?
No, he sort of fit in.
Okay.
It was fine. It
Okay.
was, there were some things that we didn't have him do that other kids did, but for the most part, he fit in really well.
Sure. And if I may, I'd like to help on this one. I forgot. Now, for the question of the kids who were not Catholic, what percentage of them converted or found a deeper meaning in their faith? I know as chaplain, not football coach, we had a good experience of that. What I found is fundamentalists who sent their kids to a Catholic school, often mom and dad would struggle, but the kid didn't. And I actually have, there was a couple kids whose mom and dad were fundamentalists and weren't even sure if Catholics were Christian.
Yeah.
By the end of their first or second year, the kids were sure the Catholics were Christian, and that was tough on mom and dad. But in both of those cases, I remember the parents supported it. Bless their beautiful hearts. Bless their beautiful hearts. And I think almost every year I brought a kid into the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me. And when I say brought him in, I mean I just did the baptizing and the kids did the spiritual recruiting, as it were. That was kind of funny. Did Patrick say, I think he ended up boxing?
He didn't answer that part. He just confirmed it was him. I'll ask him.
Way to go, Patrick. My boy. All right. And by the way, he was probably only one of 6 people who stopped Sean Coulter that year. I remember when we went in to play Mason, he had scored personally more touchdowns than our team had. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember he was just a nice kid. I remember him crying. I hugged him after the game and told him it was okay. Lord. All right. So, Coach, that takes us to 1 o'clock. And we're so grateful that you came here today. And again, I hope you picked up what I was blessed to pick up in my time living with him. That this is a man who, if anyone I know has cause to be arrogant, if anyone has cause to be self-obsessed, or even to fall into self-pity, because if I may be so bold, I think about it and I didn't know what you want to get. Coach has had a hard life. You have, by any objective standard. Coach has suffered in ways that most of us won't, and I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Okay.
And it never beat you, and it never turned you into a victim, and it never hardened you. It always seemed to somehow even make you better. And so, on behalf of those of us who know you and love you, we are so grateful. And I hope you got just a tiny sense of what a good soul I have in this friend. So thank you for joining us. Oh, hold on. Okay, I got to tell you.
Okay.
So Patrick writes back. He was captain of the Notre Dame boxing team.
Oh my God.
This explains how Sean Coulter didn't score, right? This explains it. And he said, my head still hurts from Coulter and from boxing. And his name was Jordan Coulter, not Sean. See, I messed up so much of this. So, thank you. Is there anything you want to say, parting words? Or, I don't know. If you don't want to get into this, I get it.
That's all right.
There's a lot of questions about COVID. Do you want to go there in terms of coaching?
We're sort of at the guidance of our governor and what depends a lot on there. And then Mark Ewell, the head of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, has been very supportive and has said he's going to try to get 3 sports in, and we're going to start like when we're supposed to start. It's just there's some changes on what we can do and can't do, but at least we're trying to make it work.
Sure.
Say some prayers, and hopefully everything will work out good.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. If you don't mind, I'm going to say a closing prayer.
Sure.
And we'll call it a day.
Okay.
And folks, don't forget, please like these and share these and send all of your angry comments to Coach AHERN. He loves those. And as a football coach, he never gets them. I always tell Coach D'Antonio, I'm serious. I said, football coaches and priests have one thing in common that I'm sure of. Everybody knows how to do your job better than you, and no one's doing it. Right? Everyone knows how I should be a priest. Everyone knows how you to be coach. And here's the thing: none of them are priests, and none of them are coaches. It's fascinating. Why did I go there? Oh, I made a joke about angry letters. Okay, so we're gonna pray, and then tomorrow, we are gonna be at John, and I get the 2 letters in the middle, P. O'Sullivan's. Tomorrow we're going to be at that distributor, and I am geeked. I might bring bacon, just because, you know what I mean? It'll be like bacon and beer in one building with me. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Oh, Jesus, you gave us physical gifts and talents. You gave us mental gifts and talents. You gave us spiritual gifts and talents, and for all of those, we are so grateful. And for those gifts we don't have, but that we admire in others, we express gratitude as well. You show us yourself in so many ways. So, Lord, you know what's coming in our lives, and you know what we want to be coming in our lives. And as Coach said, may we find peace in your plan, not our own. For whatever pain we carry, for whatever worries we hold on to, for whatever sorrow is plaguing us, we give it to you, and we love you, Lord, and we trust you. Amen.
Amen.
And may Almighty God bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at John P. O'Sullivan Distributors.